Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Maureen Lucy. Please kindly click on the subscribe button below, like and share this video as we watch. Thank you.
So today we are going to learn on how to write a lesson note according to the Ministry of Education 2020, that is 2020. So you see that in the lesson notes, these are the guidelines on how to start writing your lesson notes. First, you see that you should write the name of the teacher. The name of the teacher is the teacher, the person to teach on that very topic or the subject teacher. So you write your name, then you write the name of the school in which you are teaching. So when you have written the name of the school, you write the date of that you're teaching. That is the date in which you are to deliver the teaching. Are we there? So we have time. Time here in the school setting is periods. You can take it as a period. Is it the first period in that you're teaching? Is it the second period in that term? Is it the third period in that term? Or you can also write the period or the actual time you did the teaching, maybe according to the timetable. You can write the timetable says 11 to 12. You write it 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. Are you there? So the duration here is duration. That is the time limit or the time frame. So if it's 40 minutes duration, you write 40 minutes duration. Now, the name of the teacher, Maureen Lucy. The name of the school, Prince Academy. Date, 24th October 2020. Time, first period. (11 o'clock to 12 o'clock a.m. So duration is 40 minutes. Then you should know the age of your learners. That is the age of your students. So the age of your students based on the class you are teaching or you are to teach. You know, in every class we have age limits. So if you know the age limit of your student, you can say maybe, let's take assuming we are taking the learners of 6 to 7 years. Then we should know the subject we want to teach. So if the subject is maybe English language, then what class do you intend to teach? Primary 1. Okay, in this English language you intend to teach, there should be a particular topic you want to teach. You can decide to teach now based on your timetable and based on your curriculum and based on your scheme of work. So you take now. So when you want to teach this now, assuming at this point now we don't want to take other subtopics. We are only taking on now. That is when the subtopic is not necessary. But when we need to do other things on this now, we can decide to, after explaining the now, we can decide to work on other subtopics by saying types of noun, examples of noun, or uses of noun. Example of or uses of noun can be your subtopics. So at this point, you have really set your subject and you have set your topic and some topics. Now I know you are preparing to teach this topic, But how do you source your information? Because we know that we are not the originator of most of the informations we give. So your information must definitely be backed up with a reference material. So what is this reference material we see in our lesson notes? Reference material can be your textbook, can be a textbook. And under it, you have to tell us that you sourced your material from so-so textbook. Maybe from Williams textbook, 1992, 6th edition. You quote the author, you quote the year of the publishing, and the content. That is your reference material. Then if it's Google, if you Googled it, if it's Wikipedia, if it's any encyclopedia, anywhere you source your information, please be able to write it under the reference material so that it will not be copyright. So then on your instructional materials, I've told you the examples of instructional materials earlier on my previous contents, but here I tell you also that instructional materials can also be visual and audio-visual. The visual is what we can see. Just what we can see. Vision is what we can see is the visual instructional material. But the audio-visual material is what we can see and also hear. What we can see and also hear is audio-visual material. So, like example, films. Maybe films is what you can hear and also see, so it's part of audiovisual. Then pictures is visual material, you can only see them, you cannot hear anything, and so on and so forth. These are part of the examples of instructional material. Then we also have other parts of examples of instructional material, like I earlier mentioned. You can use a real object, you can use an object, pictures, and so many of them to facilitate what you are teaching. And I told you that the importance of this instructional material in teaching is that it can also aid your entry behavior. Instructional material can also aid your entry behavior. Assuming when you have come in with the instructional material, you know you can also demonstrate using your instructional material. You've not started teaching, but you are already making use of this instructional material. You just, if it's a car, you just be doing vroom, vroom. When you are doing the vroom, you are attracting the attention of your students to see how the motor, those vroom sound. Children likes that sound. So at this point is your entry behavior. So when we will say entry behavior now, I have told you earlier, in this entry behavior is where you are going to state on the questions to ask students based on their background knowledge of the topic you are about to teach. So you can there also ask them questions based on their previous knowledge. So on this entry behavior, you can modify it in a way that you attract the interest of your students or your pupil. So you can ask them questions based on their previous knowledge or their background knowledge towards what you are about to teach them. So you can also tell stories and do other things, but they say mostly that under this entry behavior must be basically on the previous knowledge of the students. So assuming you are now stating, so when you are now stating the questions you are going to ask the students based on the previous class or the previous lesson, you should also know that other things can also come up. It must not be basically on the previous questions. Their questions, the questions they answer or they attended to, can link you to other things you need to work on. So at this point, you ask yourself, what will be your behavioral objective? Behavioral objective can also be called specific objective. So specific objective, or some persons call it main aim, specific aim, main objective, specific objective. So in some cases, they are different. The main aim can be different from specific A. But under this behavioral objective, you can state your objective based on the topic you are about to teach. Now, on this objective is where you state what you want to achieve. So, on this behavioral objective, you have to state questions there that can be measurable. Your questions there in your behavioral objective can be measurable. What do you want to achieve? You want to achieve that the student should be able to define noun. You want to achieve that the student can be able to list 3 types of noun, and so on and so forth. These are the things you want to achieve. And you must make sure that during your teaching, you have to bring up strategies to make sure you really achieve your goal. So, when you are stating, there are ways to state a measurable content under the behavioral objective. You can start by saying, at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to, or the pupils should be able to define noun. The pupils should be able to list and mention the types of noun. The students should be able to give examples of noun, and so on and so forth. These are the things you want to achieve, and these are things you want your students to really learn. You see that when you have stated this objective, you must make sure you work hard towards achieving it. So, after you have stated your behavioral objective, you list now your content. This content is where your notes start from. Are you getting it? This is where you develop your notes step by step. So under this content, mostly the first thing to write in your notes is the introduction. That is where you are introducing the topic. So at this point, you can tell us, you can share with, you can plan on how you want to really introduce this topic. How do you want to introduce this topic? We know that here on your entry behavior, you have really asked them question based on the previous lesson. But here, during the introduction, you can also do other things. You can, there at this point, also introduce the topic by storytelling. You can also introduce the topic by demonstration. You can also introduce it by making use of your instructional material, or maybe displaying your instructional material for the student to identify. So you can ask them, what am I holding? What am I holding in my hand? They will say, you are holding a marker. Okay, and today we are going to talk about noun. Are you getting it? Now, what is a noun? So at this point, you are really doing this just to induce the interest of the student towards the topic you are about to introduce. Are you getting it? During your introduction, you are inducing the students towards the topic you want to introduce. So you are trying to captivate their interest. And when you are done captivating their interest towards this topic, the next step is the teacher's activity. The next step is what? The teacher's activity. Now, we know that in education, we should know it now that in every step of your lesson notes, when you start your content, it should come step by step. Your content should come step by step. Like this introduction should be your step 1. This introduction should be step 1. Your step 1 is introduction. And on this introduction, you are trying to do things to introduce the lesson. And at that moment, you as a teacher, at that moment, you are trying to introduce the topic. You know that what you are doing at that moment is what we call teacher's activity. Teacher's activity. So this teacher's activity is the activities of the teachers during that particular step. The teacher's activity during that particular step. That is what are going to be my activity in the step 1 during my introduction. So when you have done that, now you can introduce the lesson by defining noun. Then, what were the students doing when the teacher was really defining noun? That is the student activity. So there in that student activity, you can say the students listen to what the teacher is explaining or defining and take note of it. Then when you have mentioned the students' activities and the teacher's activity, you see that at this point the teacher and the student is really working hand in hand to make sure the goal is being achieved. So it is telling you that in every step of your lesson notes. So at this step is step 1, introduction. Your step 2 can be what? The types of noun. That is based on the subtopic. The step 2 can be types of noun. You can have your step 2 as the types of noun. Types of noun. Then in this type of noun, what was the teacher doing or saying on this step 2? Types of noun. You now write again, teacher's activity. The teacher introduces listed the types of noun and explain them as so thing. Then the teacher will explain the types of noun, compound noun, simple noun, and the rest. Are you getting it? So then the students, what were the students doing at that stage 2 when you were listing the types of noun? The students listen, ask questions, and answer questions of from the teacher. Are you getting it? So this is the students' activity in this stage 2. So I'm trying to tell you that in every step of your teaching must have teachers' activities and students' activity. It means that these two parties are really working together to achieve it. But when there is no teacher's activity or student's activity, it means it is one-sided. That students are not carried along. They are not carried along. So you have to bring students into your teaching. Then when you are through with your teaching, you have really taught on the steps you have listed. Then you do what? The last part of teaching is called evaluation. You evaluate your teaching. Then you now ask the students at this point the questions based on what you taught them. You ask them questions on what you just taught them. Now, this evaluation question is used to assess the performance of the teacher. That is, you are assessing yourself, or maybe a supervisor is assessing you. Are you getting it? The supervisor is also assessing you based on the responses you get from the student. So if the responses of the student is poor, it means that your teaching performance is also poor. But if the responses is very high, that is very interesting, it means there is a kudos to your teaching. So in everything, you have to make sure that you are teaching your students in a way they should be able to understand, memorize, and be able to answer questions. Are we there? So summary and closure comes after your evaluation. When you have asked and the students have answered your question on evaluation, you can decide to close your lesson. Like I told you earlier, you can close your lesson in many ways. You can close it by giving a summary of your teaching. Quick summary is always important because at that point it refreshes the interest of the students. You can state it by saying the teacher closed or ended his lesson by giving a summary of the main points of the lesson. Then that is your closure. You close by giving a summary, which is always the acceptable one to close with a summary. Then on assignments, after you have closed, then you can also close by giving the students notes, a detailed note on the board. You can write a detailed note, and this is the way you want to close your lesson, by writing a detailed note on the board. Then you can also give them, then after the closure, you now give what? Assignments. You give assignments. After your closure, you give assignments. So at this point, you see that assignment is written separately as the important thing. It is very important to do or to give assignments in your teaching. So no matter how you teach, you have to assess the student by also giving them sense of belonging, give them assignments to write at home, so that it will keep them busy and also refreshing their memory towards the next class. Are we there? So, and this, when you are able to do this, you will be able to achieve a lot in your teaching and learning situation or process.